What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm working on a family member's 1997 Nissan Maxima. They have a complaint recently that they have no heat. It's kind of stuck on like a medium, kind of moderate temperature, not really cold, not really hot. I have a suspicion that it might be a lazy blend door air mix actuator motor. I've ordered one up here just to be on the safe side in case we need it. We're gonna see. I'm not sure what all's involved with getting access to this motor actuator. I know it's underneath the dashboard, kind of sandwiched between the climate control box and the engine computer. So we're gonna start digging into it and see how difficult it is to access it and kind of go from there. So real quick, let me show you what we got going on. You can see we got the car up to operating temperature, so that we should be getting some pretty piping hot air coming out of these vents up here, and we've got it set to full hot. Now I can feel it right now. It feels pretty lukewarm. I know you guys can't feel it, but I do have the heat gun, or the temperature gun here, and we're showing about 78 degrees, 77, 78. So that seems pretty low. If we switch this all the way to the cold, you can see there's absolutely no change whatsoever. So I got a pretty good feeling that the blend door has gotten lazy on us, or has died completely. I've already checked all the powers and grounds, signal wires going to it. Power and ground looks good. The value for the motor control changes when we move our temperature slider, so that looks good there. And I've checked the hoses going to and from the heater core under hood. They're both showing about 170 degrees. So I don't think there's any kind of blockage going on. There could be some sort of restriction. But I would expect to see a pretty noticeable temperature difference if we did have a restriction in the heater core that's potentially preventing good coolant flow going through it. So we're going to start with the blend door, at least take off the actuator and see if maybe we have a problem going on with the door itself. Maybe it's seized up, or if the actuator's gone bad itself. All right, so I've done a little research to try to figure out where exactly this motor actuator is. If we take a look, this is the driver's side underneath the dashboard. You can see our gas and brake pedals right here. Look underneath, there is one actuator visible, and I got excited thinking maybe that was the one, but I did find out, and you see if I switch the various modes here, we get some movement out of that actuator. So that is the mode door actuator, unfortunately. And taking a little closer look in here, see if I can get you guys in here, the blend door or air mix door actuator actually sits, you guys can probably see better than I can, on the very bottom there, hidden behind this wiring harness. So what I think we have to do is start by getting this trim panel off. This ductwork might have to come out of the way. And I believe there is a engine control module sitting behind this panel here. So looks like we got two push pin retainers here holding that panel on. We'll go ahead and take those off and see what we're working with. So we have that panel out of the way, and yeah, we can definitely see it looks like the engine control module sitting under here. I might do a little digging around in here and see how necessary it is to remove that, but it's looking like I don't really see any other way. That actuator isn't gonna come out without removing that. So let me see how this module comes out of here. I'm talking about this guy right here. All right, so what I found after prying this wiring harness out of this little bracket here, kind of getting a better look underneath, is it looks like this bracket is bolted right to the floor. You probably can't see that, but there's a couple bolts behind the carpet right down in here, and I'm assuming there's probably two more up front here. So we're gonna have to try to peel this carpet back the best I can. I'm gonna get this floor mat out of here first, give me a little bit of wiggle room, and then try to peel the carpet back and see if we can't get to all the fasteners from this side. What I think is gonna have to happen is this little block here. I think that's held in by a 10 millimeter bolt. We're gonna have to get that out in order to pull the carpet back. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. course, that was wishful thinking because it looks like the carpet's being held underneath the module here somewhere. So let me investigate that. All right, so it looks like that carpet goes all the way over to the other side, or secured on the other side. And I'm not really going to be able to get access from this side. So at the very least, I think we can peel back enough of the carpet here to get access to those two bolts. I've got that front section peeled back. I'm not seeing any fasteners up towards the front of that module, so we'll start by taking these bottom two off. Maybe we'll get lucky and it's just kind of hinged in place or something like that, but we'll go ahead and take these two out and go from there. All right, so I got the one mounting bolt off on the other side, on the driver's side. Couldn't reach this one on the passenger side, so I decided to come over here and see what we had to work with. And luckily, there is another access panel, just like on the driver's side. Just two more of those little push pins. Comes right out, and then it gives you access to the other side of the engine control module. So we do have one more bolt there to pull out. Probably gonna have to get a swivel in there because it's pretty tight fit with that wiring harness. But I did notice, if we look up top here, you can see the top of the blend door actuator and the linkage that comes off of it. It's that little black box with the white arm on top of it. So I figured now would be a good time to actually test the operation of it, see if we see it moving at all, before we go, digging any further trying to replace it. So it's on full hot right now, and I just switched it over to full cold, and you can see we don't have any movement going on there. That's back to full hot. So that's making me feel pretty good about our diagnosis of that blend door actuator, and I think I'm good to go ahead and continue tearing it apart to get access to it. So this wiring harness here on the left is a little too chunky to work past as far as getting access to that bolt. So I really didn't want to disconnect this engine controller, but I think just to make my life a little easier, I'm going to do that. So first I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery just to be on the safe side. I think those terminals need to be cleaned up anyway. And then we're going to go ahead and pull this connector off using this 10mm bolt on the left. And these two mounting screws so far are 10mm by the way. So let me go ahead and disconnect the battery, and then I'm going to pull this connector off, get that bolt out, and then we'll see if the engine module starts moving after that. Still fighting me. All right, so we got those two bolts out, and the module's a little loose, but it's still not coming out. So what I think is still holding it in is we have a couple spots for the wiring harness, or a couple of different wiring harnesses are snapped into the bracket. So I'm gonna go ahead, pop those out, and hopefully it'll come free and be able to slide out this side. All right, guys, so I messed with the engine computer for a couple minutes, and what I ended up doing, basically once we get these two bolts out towards the rear of the module, it looks like the module is, at least the bracket, is just kind of snapped into a point up on the firewall. So all you have to do is grab the module, and I recommend doing it on the driver's side since, we got the connector over here. We don't want to damage any of the terminals or anything. But get a hand on it on the driver's side and just kind of wiggle it while pulling it back towards the back of the car, and it should pop right out of that track that it's in up at the firewall, and then you can push it over towards the gas pedal. Since the module, or the actuator, seems to be more accessible on this side, because there's a ton of wiring harnesses over on the other side that kind of block you from getting to it, I recommend pushing the module out towards the driver's side, and it should give you enough access now. It's gonna be a tight fit, but I think we can make it work. It looks like there's two bolts that hold on the actuator to the underside of the box, one on this side and then one on the other side. So now that we have a little bit of wiggle room, I'm gonna go ahead and get those 2 bolts out, see if there's any other hardware that holds that actuator up in place, and see if we can't fish it out of there. So I've gotten the actuator out for the blend door. You can see this is the spot where it mounts. Those 3 posts is where it screws into. And then this little white plastic arm here is connected to the blend door itself. And that's where the actuator rides in that track in terms of blend door. So I'll show you in a moment how I got the actuator out. But while we have the actuator out of the way, what we want to do is move the door by hand. And as you can see, it moves both directions pretty freely, and that's good. We like to see that because there's a possibility, and I've seen some cases where that door will actually seize up inside the box. That arm will break off, and then the actuator will be fine itself, but it's not able to turn the blend door because the arm is broken off. And in that case, you're in pretty rough shape, because then you're looking at replacing the entire HVAC box, which requires disassembling the entire dashboard. So it looks like we got lucky here. That arm's good to go. I think the door's good to go. Let me show you how we got that actuator out. So this is how the module would be sitting in the car. This is the front side, and this being the back side. So there's 3 screws, it turns out. There's not any bolts that hold this in, but 3 Phillips head screws, which made things a lot more complex. Here, here, and here. There isn't one in this position. It turned into quite a process trying to get this thing out of here. And basically what I would recommend that you guys do, these 2 are going to be your best friends. I was able to pick these up from Lowe's for pretty cheap. So it's a 90-degree offset screwdriver, comes in a 3-pack. Sometimes you can get them bundled with some other screwdrivers, and then this small ratcheting offset screwdriver bit set. This thing saved my life right here. I highly recommend getting one of those. I honestly don't think this job would be possible without that ratcheting bit driver. That thing saved my life trying to get those 3 screws out. But what I would do is start on the passenger side under the dash. That gives you access to this screw and that screw. You have to fight. There's a pretty big wiring harness that runs underneath the module towards the front of the firewall that fights you getting access to this one. But start on the passenger side, getting access to that screw and that screw. And that just leaves this left front one here, and that's probably the worst one to get to. You'll see here I actually resorted in disconnecting the, let's see if I can get a better angle there. I disconnected the accelerator pedal from the firewall. You see there's just 2 studs, there's 2 10mm nuts that hold that on, just to get that out of the way and get some more swinging room to kind of come around the back side. I'm sorry, the front side of that module and the HVAC box. So once you have the accelerator pedal out of the way, it's still not great, but you can at least get your hands in there, kind of do it by touch if you have to, and get your ratcheting bit driver in there, get that last screw. Once you get those 3 screws out, then the module comes free, and there's just this electrical connector on the side here. What I found helpful was to kind of push it over towards the driver's side here, because that's where the you can see the wiring harness there. That little one plugs in, is on the driver's side. You have to kind of reach your hand in there, kind of do it by feel, but there is a release on the bottom there, and then the connector pops right out. You can drop the actuator down and then out on the passenger side. So let me grab the new one and we'll get that installed. So here you see you got the new actuator next to the old one. This one I actually found on eBay. It was a brand new part being sold by a dealership that had an eBay page. The dealer by me wanted a little over $200 for this actuator. As far as I know, there aren't any aftermarket actuators being made. I had no good way of cross-checking part numbers or anything like that, and I figure if I'm going through this much trouble, I might as well just put in an OE part and be done with it. So this part does exist on eBay. It's a brand new Nissan factory part. You can see here, this particular one is a 27732-40U00. That is for the 97 Maxima. I'm sure that'd be the same for, I think it's 95 to 99 Maxima. This one has manual climate control. I don't know if the automatic temperature control is the same, but you can always call up your dealer, see what their availability and pricing is, and then double check the part number, just be on the safe side. But yeah, I didn't find any aftermarket alternatives, so I just went with the original OE Nissan part. This one still cost me probably about 170 bucks. but at least we know it'll work and it's good quality. So let's go ahead and get this installed. I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in, connect the wiring harness on the side. I probably won't be able to show you guys that just because it's pretty close quarters in there trying to get those screws in. But once I get it in, I'll try to do a little test run and make sure that this actuator is working okay. On a little side note, I think what I might do too before I install the new actuator is grease up this arm where it makes contact with the lever for that blend door. It's probably not necessary, but it's not going to be very accessible once it's in there, so I figure it can't hurt anything. We'll put a little silicone grease. The only place where it makes contact is this arm here. The other half of the arm doesn't seem like it interacts with anything, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on this post here. Again, we got the electrical connector side facing towards the left here, so if you're holding it with the electrical connector to the left, it's going to be the post closest to you. So we'll put some grease on there, install it, and test it, make sure it's working okay. Alright guys, the new actuator is in. I'd be lying if I didn't say it was kind of a nightmare to put it in, so brace yourselves for that. But yeah, those 3 screws, getting them fished in there with your fingers, getting them started and then getting them tightened is it's a bit of a project. I think I spent almost an hour just trying to get all 3 of those screws started and then tightened. At one point, I think I pretty much had to like suspend myself upside down with my feet up on the headrest of the seat. So do whatever you gotta do, find whatever works for you the best. Again, that ratcheting bit driver is a miracle worker in this case. I don't think I'd even attempt this job without it. So before I button everything back up and put it back together, we have the new actuator in, and I have the battery reconnected. So we're gonna crawl underneath the dash here. You can see the top of our actuator there, so I'm going to go ahead and cycle. We're on full hot right now. I'm going to go to full cold. And then back to full hot. You can see we got full movement of the actuator and the door. Everything is looking beautiful. It's exactly what I like to see. So I'm going to go ahead and button everything back up, put all the panels back on. Put the accelerator pedal back on, make sure you tighten that down real nice and snug. You don't want that coming loose on you. That's kind of an important part. And then we're going to go ahead and run the car and get it to operating temperature, and we're going to recheck the heat output coming from those vents. Okay, so moment of truth, guys. You can see we got the engine temperature back up to operating range where it's supposed to be. So coolant's nice and heated. I've got the AC on right now just to kind of double check everything, make sure everything works. So that's looking pretty good. You can see we're down below 60 degrees in a couple spots. So I like to see that. So let's turn that off. You see we're on full cold on just ambient air coming into the car. They're still sitting around the 60s or so. They'd probably go up a couple degrees if I let it run for a little while longer. But let's see where we get at in the middle of the range here. See if it comes up. You can see it is slowly climbing there. 64, 65, 66. So let's go ahead and crank it full hot and see what we get. I can tell you right now, I can feel it coming out. So there, we were at 77 before, we were pretty much stuck there. Now we're pushing 80. 107. So yeah, I'd say we got good heat. Heat's cranking pretty good right now, so it looks like we're in good shape. But let's go ahead and crank it all the way cold again, see how it responds. As you can see, the temperature is dropping pretty steadily, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think that blend door or air mix door actuator solved all of our issues in this case, and I think we're ready to go and ready to ship the car. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was and you liked it, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel so that you're notified whenever I release new content. Until next time, have a great day. See you later.